Welcome to our presentation for QED Conference. This is Connectivity, Collaboration and Kinship, which I think encapsulates what our project was about. So this is called Namaste with Nick, a yoga project, a collaboration between primary education studies students and sports broadcasting students. So I'm Nick Young. I'm a lecturer on the Primary Education Studies course, and we work with Joe Towns and his students on sports broadcasting. So we have a history together. We have worked together on a few projects. We worked together with a behaviour unit, so students came in. It was a long day of filming, and we produced some music videos. We also worked together on a Richard Parkes project. So this project was called Namaste with Nick. Usually we would have schools coming in and we'd be doing and exploring health and well-being, which is a big part of the new curriculum in Wales, in primary schools. So we'd be having children coming in and we'd be leading them through a series of yoga activities, Tai Chi, to explore the new curriculum. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, because schools were locked down, as was the campus, our students were really frustrated that they couldn't get out to schools. Myself and Joe shared a similar passion to try and bring authentic learning experiences for our students, and we didn't want the pandemic to stop us. So the project began because I contacted Joe. I tried at home in my kitchen, an echoey kitchen, with my iPhone to try and record some of my yoga sessions at home, and it just wasn't working. So I got in touch with Joe, pleaded with him to try and see if he could get involved in some way. What was clear was that it needed to be a collaboration that both of us benefited from this, and his students as well couldn't get on campus. So for our students, as I mentioned, they really wanted to still get experience with pupils, to try and get experience with schools. So although they couldn't get physical experience, what they could do is to create some digital content at home. Also for them, there's a real urge throughout this project. For them, they were really conscious that they were stuck behind screens. A lot of the learning, the remote learning that we were doing, was focused around sitting at a Teams meeting all day. They really enjoyed the break of trying to engage with some activities to help their mental health, their physical health as well. So the central focus of this was to help well-being, so mentally and physically, for our students and for primary school children as well. So the schools that engaged with us, they were really passionate. Again, with the remote learning, they were sat at their screens as well. So the schools really wanted to give children just some small strategies that they could use to try and navigate these lockdowns that we were going through. The thing that we didn't really plan for, but what actually emerged and developed, was this learning community that developed. So our students, from watching my videos, they started to create their own videos, which we then shared with primary schools. And then the amazing thing was that the primary schools then started to send in their own videos, and they were all mini Joe Wicks, and they were all sending videos back to us. It was really nice to see and nurture this learning community which evolved from this project. So what did we do? So this was a project that lasted for a good few weeks. It included a lot of rehearsals. It included us recording some digital content that could be sent to schools, which involved yoga stories. One of the awesome things we do with yoga is we create stories with our posture cards. So as you've got here, so I've sent this to your teacher. These are from yoga at schools. So you can print these off. They come in A4. And you get, these are our poses. So what I usually get to do, which involved breathing techniques, short, sharp, quite fastly edited videos to try and capture and engage younger students, just so they, again, could be armed with a morning routine. They could be armed with a little breakaway activity so they weren't stuck on screens all the time. So we recorded those, and we were then building towards these live, we did 3 live yoga sessions which lasted around 30 minutes.
You do is you have a straight back, like this. Many of you spellings, I've seen you. You've been hunched over computers, like this. And there's my moustache gone, that's fine. And you're hunched over computers, and you can't fill your whole lungs up.
And these were broadcast live to schools across the UK and predominantly in Wales. So I've got a number of, being a former primary school teacher, got a number of contacts within the industry, and also just with social media, it did get broadcast and shared across a number of screens. A number of schools got involved, and it was really exciting on the day to see the different schools that got involved. So there were a number of challenges. Obviously with projects on this scale, it soon expanded, and as I mentioned, there's a number of schools that got involved. Obviously when engaging with schools online, there's always a safeguarding issue. So we learned very quickly in terms of YouTube and YouTube Live, and having to work with children, you have to say to YouTube whether or not this is going to be working with children. If you are working with children, it does get put onto YouTube Kids. But the thing that we learned was that you can't have the interactivity, you couldn't have the commentary that you'd have on an adult channel. So what would have worked really well, I think, was to have children with the chat coming through. I could be trying to involve them a lot more and mention their names, a lot more shout outs. But with YouTube Live, with kids, you can't do that. So the schools that we did know that we were working with, they were sending me emails, they were sending me messages, and I could read those out. But some of the schools that I didn't know that were just joining in with the broadcast, we did miss that opportunity to interact with them. The impact for this project, I mean, when we set out, I just contacted Joe to try and make my videos a little bit better than me being in my echoey kitchen. But the impact has been absolutely amazing. Firstly, for our students were really motivated. It really broke the pattern of endless Teams meetings and endless lectures.
So could you just describe what we've been doing this morning?
Well, we've been doing a live yoga session with Nick, looking at different stories to do with yoga, and then relaxation and learning about well-being and just grounding ourselves.
And they really felt part of a learning community in that they were creating these videos at home, but they knew that they were being shared. So there's some brilliant examples of them creating, and just the creativity of these. They came up with their own characters. We had all sorts from Steve Backshaw to cavemen being involved, and it was brilliant to see their creative ideas and how they could try and engage and capture the motivation of children. And then for the children then to go off, and they were inspired to make their own videos. And I was really blown away by some of the production value of some of the children. Some of them were 8, 9, and they were producing 15-minute videos just from watching some of my videos and some of our students' videos. So again, that learning community that was provided was just brilliant and amazing to see. Yeah, the amazing thing about this project was the impact on some of our students. I was really taken aback by the amount that our students had actually taken on some of the techniques that we'd shown them. They were using a lot of the breath techniques. They were just trying to get outside into nature, which is part of the module. One of the quotes we've got here was they were learning how to teach well-being within a primary school, but they were taking a lot of these strategies and using them at home to break away from screen time, to just try and get some air in their lungs and to try and wake them up for days full of teaching. There were definitely a number of lessons that we learned from this project. Just how technology can engage our students, pupils across Wales. Although we're in a pandemic, I think just both our passion for myself and Joe to try and bring authentic learning experiences to our students, we were met with a number of challenges, but we're sort of driven by our passion to make sure that the pandemic didn't stop them having these experiences. There were a number of challenges, and this wasn't all plain sailing. And I guess whenever we embark on new projects, that is the reality really. But I think if you can keep that main passion to drive you through, you get there in the end. We are looking to do this again for next year. I felt that there are a number of schools that missed out, especially those in the Welsh medium. So we're going to look to bring in another presenter. So we're working with Dudley. We'll be looking to present some of this in Welsh. So our Welsh schools can also engage. And we're also going to look at more interactive ways where schools can engage and also be part of the project as well.
Yeah, like so many industries this year, broadcasting, sports broadcasting in particular, ground to an absolute halt due to the pandemic. So for us on campus teaching a broadcasting course, we had to sort of try and figure out a way to find practical opportunities when there was no sport happening. So when Nick Young, aka the Wise Wizard,
I am the wise wizard. I am very wise.
appeared in a puff of smoke with his proposition to make a series of yoga videos and a yoga live stream, I thought, oh, this could work perfectly for us. It's a sort of real brief, it's realistic, it's achievable, and so we got planning then. And what was great, Nick dropped into one of our Microsoft Teams meetings and he set the brief, and that always really helps. I think the students get bored of my voice all the time, so it's nice when the briefs are set by someone external, and Nick gave them confidence to be adventurous. He was really specific. He said, right, this is for kids, it's going to go on YouTube, it's for school kids, and we talk to our students a lot about the importance of understanding who your audience is when you make some content and understanding what platform it's going to go on. So he told them to have fun, he told them to come up with crazy graphics, to use whatever music they want. And we talk to our students a lot about storyboarding and that bit of planning and preparation, but also storytelling. And Nick was very much, Nick's project and how he does his yoga sessions are all about storytelling as well. So it was a really imaginative brief, and it had loads of freedom for the students to be creative and to come up with whatever they wanted. So it's really important for Nick and I to talk about collaboration, because it's not always as simple as everyone thinks, but Nick and I are really keen on this sort of collaboration with different parts of the university, and it has a lot of positives and a lot of benefits, and it's really good fun. Yeah, Nick and I are really keen to talk about collaborative projects and the sort of positive sides of collaborating with other departments, but also keen to stress that it's not always easy, but we both have a similar attitude to teaching. We want to make it fun, we want to make the sessions for the students memorable, we want to make them different. We also, for ourselves, to keep ourselves interested, we like taking on things that are new challenges. We want to try and be innovative. I'd worked with Nick on a project before. He'd brought in some young students from Blaenau that were from the pupil referral unit, and that was a real challenge for me. I hadn't worked in that sort of environment before. But Nick said, can you put on a media day for them? I agreed, but it was going to be a whole day of our time, and sometimes these things are a big commitment. What Nick also promised was that we'd have access to Neville Southall, who was working with these young kids from Blaenau, and that was brilliant for me and my students to be able to interview Neville Southall, a Welsh footballing legend. And so I think Nick understood that you have to offer something as well. It has to work for both parties, there has to be a bit of give and take. You can't expect people from other departments to give up huge amounts of their time with no gain. So Nick and I was trying to find projects where we're both getting something out of it, and more importantly our students are getting something out of it. We had a lot of fun working on the Richard Parks project as well, and we've definitely had through this the opportunity to see how each other work. And it was Nick that told me about the principles of authentic learning and real world scenarios. And that's really become my philosophy now, is that for our students you have to create these real relevant briefs, and it's great if they come from an external or from someone from somewhere else in the university. And actually it makes me laugh sometimes, the idea of real world briefs. Like, why would you have any other type of brief? Why would you put a student through a brief that wasn't real world? Because we're trying to prepare them for the real world, so it makes sense that these are real world briefs. It makes sense to our sort of course, sport broadcasting. It's a practical course, it's really vocational, but yeah, we were in a really tricky place in terms of how could we find relevant real world briefs, and Nick came along and the yoga project was perfect. So could our students create a series of yoga videos aimed at school kids. That was the challenge. Challenge was accepted. Could we find a way of broadcasting live and live streaming that into schools? That was another element of the sort of technical side of the project. And could we get all this done safely on campus in the middle of a pandemic? I think sometimes you have these great ideas, these really exciting ideas, you try and be adventurous and innovative, and you forget actually that the more you step out of the classroom, the more you do things that are outside of what we'd call normal teaching, the more challenges and the more obstacles there are. So the health and safety side of this was massive. We were deep in the middle of the pandemic. This was sort of early February. We just had permission that we were allowed back on campus 1 day a week, but only in really controlled circumstances. And so understandably, the university were really cautious when we took this plan to them. And I can't begin to describe how important it is that you've got brilliant technicians. We've got a guy called Lucas Burks who spent weeks working on the risk assessments, sending it to the COVID group at the university. They would send it back, we'd refine it, and even the night before the shoot it looked like it wasn't going to happen because one of the students had incorrectly filled in one of the forms. So I think people, when they take on these sort of projects, have to realise that the more adventurous you are and the more unorthodox your teaching, your idea might be, the more potential issues and problems there will be around it. We also had to be prepared for some really long days because we were having to teach in small groups. We had to get through 16 students, so it meant Lucas and our technical staff, Lucas and Jamie, came in at 7 in the morning to set all the stuff up. The Archers Arena, which we were lucky to get because there's no sport happening, we needed a big space that could be well circulated. But having the doors open in the Archers Arena in February, it was absolutely freezing in there. Okay for the students that were only coming in for 2 hours at a time, but for us we were there all day, and I don't think the students really see that. They come in for their 2 hours and they actually wanted to stay longer, but we had to explain, look, it's not possible for us to have more of you in here at the same time. We have to clear you out of the room so we can get the room ventilated properly. And I don't think they see that the staff are there all day, from early in the morning setting up to the end of the day putting everything away. So I think it's important when you take on these projects that you understand they're probably going to be quite a lot of extra work. It's really rewarding and it's worth it, but it's and the other thing that was very hard, and it's very hard teaching practical sessions at the moment, is trying to communicate with masks on, especially when you're in a live TV environment and you're trying to give everyone instructions and delegate different things, and the students are trying to pass information around. Doing that with a mask on was a lot harder than we thought it would be, and a lot more tiring. So again, as much as this was a lot of fun and the videos look great, it was a lot of work as well. When we tried to look at the impact of this project, what was obvious is that our students had really, really enjoyed it. My sport broadcast students had found it meaningful, and they'd really liked the fact they were doing something that was helping school kids all over Wales, many of whom had had a pretty tough year as well. They were helping them with their well-being. So again, these sort of projects are much better when they've got that added layer of meaning to them. The other thing was the whole idea of why we do this as teachers, that we actually need to make our courses stand out. It's quite a competitive marketplace, and when people are thinking to come to our course, it's not because they think we've got a good research methods module. All the other courses around the country are doing media laws. It's things like this that make us different, they make us unique, they make our course stand out. We make a behind the scenes video, which was also part of the student learning, was to film behind the scenes. And then we put that out there, and hopefully potential prospective students in the future might see those videos and see that they're likely to come on a course that does things that are a little bit different, a little bit unique, and again, they hopefully make us stand out. But as well as impact, yeah, it's nice to hear from the students. This is one student, Gabriella, said it was a real thrill to know we were broadcasting live across Wales. It added a little to the pressure. So that's what we wanted. We wanted to put the students in a situation where, again, it goes back to that real world learning, authentic learning, where they're under pressure and they have to deliver a brief to a set deadline, to set durations, to a set audience. So yeah, it had real impact because it ticked all of those boxes. So this was a great project, and we ended up with some tangible content. If you go to our Cardiff Met Sport TV YouTube page, you'll see the promos, you'll see some of the short form stories, you'll see the live streams. So again, it's great for our students when they don't really validate their work until it's up on YouTube, until it's on a platform where they can share it to potential people they're going for a job with, or they can show it to their parents, share it with their friends. So it's great for them to have made some actual content, and like I said, you can see that on Cardiff Met Sport TV or on our Twitter page, See Met Sport TV, on our Instagram page. We've even got a TikTok page now. So yeah, thanks for listening to this. It's been a really fun project for us, and I think both Nick and I are firmly of the belief that it's in these sort of environments where some of the best learning can happen. So we're looking forward to creating some similar environments again in the future.
We say the yoga password, which is Namaste. Thanks for joining in, Tavern Spite, Templeton, Mr. Henton, Miss Arthur, Group 2.8. We've absolutely loved it. Namaste.